The diner smelled like coffee and fried eggs that morning, the kind of smell that makes you feel like the world is still simple. But Daniel Knox never let his guard down, not even over breakfast. Years in uniform had wired him that way. He sat with his back to the wall, eyes on the front door, watching his wife Maya pour orange juice for their boy Caleb. 10 years old, gap-toothed grin swinging his legs under the table. It was supposed to be just another Saturday morning, a rare calm moment for a man who'd seen more chaos than he cared to count. But that calm shattered the moment the bell over the door jingled and two cops stepped inside. You know that feeling when the air in a room changes before anything happens? Maya felt it first. One officer, stocky with a crooked smile, scanned the room like he owned it. The other, tall, stiff-backed, his eyes sharp as razors, wasn't looking for coffee. They weren't here to eat. They were hunting. And in a diner full of white faces, the Knox family stood out like ink on white paper. They moved toward Daniel's table, slow and deliberate. Caleb was still buttering his toast when the taller cop leaned his weight on their table, his face way too close to Maya's. "Morning, where you headed all dressed up?" he asked, voice smooth but edged like a blade. Maya straightened her shoulders, sliding a glance toward her husband. "We're just having breakfast." Her tone was steady, but Daniel could feel her pulse in the way she placed her cup down. The other cop chuckled, circling behind Daniel like a wolf. "Nice car out there. Folks like you ever forget to pay?" The room went quiet. Conversations stopped. Mid-sentence, spoons hovered in the air, but no one said a word. Daniel set his mug down, steady as a rock, and finally looked up at the man leaning over his wife. His voice was calm, deep enough to make people lean in just to catch it. "You should step back." That simple warning was enough to make the room feel colder. The cop smirked. "Or what?" His hand dropped heavy on Daniel's shoulder, fingers digging in like a dare. Caleb froze, eyes wide, toast slipping from his hand. Maya reached across the table. Enough, she snapped, but before anyone could react, the officer knocked her hand away. She stumbled back, milk spilling across her blouse. A hush swept the diner, followed by gasps. Daniel didn't flinch. He'd been in rooms where one twitch meant death. He'd been stared down by men holding rifles in cities he'd rather forget. But seeing his wife shoved, seeing Caleb trembling against her side, that was the crack in the dam. The officer sneered, "Stand up, big man. Let's settle this." He grabbed Daniel's collar, yanking him halfway from his seat. Caleb let out a small, frightened cry. That sound hit Daniel harder than any threat. And that was the last straw. The movement was so fast the cop didn't have time to register it. Daniel's hand snapped to his wrist, twisting with surgical precision. The man's face slammed into the table, his arm pinned behind his back in a single fluid motion. Chairs scraped back, people screamed, but Daniel didn't move from his stance. His voice was ice. "Touch my family again, and you won't get back up." The second cop lunged for his gun, but Daniel kicked his chair back, knocking the wind out of him. The gun clattered to the floor. Suddenly, the predator was the prey, and the room erupted into chaos. Phones out, voices, raised doors slamming as people bolted. Maya shielded Caleb, pulling him close, her eyes wide, but full of something new relief. Daniel let the first officer go, shoving him to the floor. He stood tall, breathing steady, not like a man who'd just taken down two cops, but like a soldier calculating the next move. But he didn't run. He raised his hands just enough to show he wasn't attacking. The fear in the diner shifted from the cops to him. Someone whispered, "He's military. Look at him." Another voice muttered, "That makes it worse." Within minutes, sirens wailed outside, and Daniel knew exactly how this would look: two officers down and a black man standing over them. By evening, the story wasn't about harassment. It wasn't about the shove or the fear in Caleb's eyes. The local news showed only one thing: Daniel slamming a cop into a table. Headlines called him unstable, a trained killer. Maya's Facebook photos were pulled and plastered across tabloids. Caleb's face was blurred in some posts, exposed in others. And Daniel, he was now a villain in his own hometown. They left their house that night, slipping away under cover of darkness to a safe place only one man could offer: Darius Reed, Daniel's old SEAL teammate turned FBI agent. Darius didn't ask questions, just pulled Daniel into a hug and said, "Come in, we'll figure this out." His home became their bunker walls, lined with maps, laptops glowing with traces of deleted footage. Because yes, there had been a video. A diner patron had posted the full encounter online. It showed everything: the taunts, the shove, Caleb's terrified face. Within an hour, it was gone. The uploader's account was permanently suspended. Darius slammed his fist on the table. They're burying it hard. Over the next few days, the attack wasn't just on Daniel's name. Maya was fired from her job under brand protection policies. Caleb was suspended from school after parents complained he made other children uncomfortable. Hate mail showed up on their doorstep. Someone sent a bag of trash with a note. "We know where you live." Daniel stayed quiet, but each day that silence aided him. Then came the letter. Sitting at Darius's kitchen table, Daniel wrote by hand. "My name is Daniel Knox. I don't regret protecting my wife and son. I regret believing the law was a shield. If justice exists, why are we living like fugitives?" They shared it with veterans groups, civil rights blogs, and watched it vanish from mainstream platforms within hours. The breaking point came when Caleb cut his hand on a shattered mirror. He hadn't meant to. He was just angry, scared, lashing out in a way no child should. Daniel held his boy that night and felt like the strongest man in the room couldn't protect his family from his own country. And that's when he decided enough hiding. If they buried the truth, he told Darius, we'll dig it out. They traced everything. Every deleted clip, every name tied to the department's tech support team. It wasn't support, it was censorship. Darius pulled out an old blueprint. The footage is stored here, offline. If we get it, they can't spin it anymore. That night, Daniel slipped through shadows like he'd done in foreign cities. He and Darius moved like ghosts through the back entrance of a plain brick building, just another municipal structure no one would notice. Inside, the hum of servers filled the air. Rows of blinking lights stood like silent witnesses. Daniel's hands didn't shake as he plugged in the drive. There it was, uncut footage. Tanner the cop shoving him. Maya being struck. Caleb's tears. And then Daniel's takedown, 3 seconds of precision that had been turned into propaganda. They yanked the drive, killed the lights, and slipped out just as a night shift officer returned for his jacket. By the time the sun rose, they were back in Darius's living room, footage on Camille Hart's laptop, a federal attorney who'd agreed to take the case. Camille watched in silence, then looked at Daniel. This isn't just self-defense. This is systemic. They didn't just frame you. They built a machine to erase truth. Over the next week, they unraveled it all. A covert tech unit authorized to sanitize footage. Within 3 minutes, a chain of approvals leading straight to the police chief, cases buried for years, complaints from black residents that had never seen daylight. Camille's voice shook with controlled fury. They turned evidence into a weapon, and they've done it for a decade. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous it became. A former IT worker, terrified for his life, confirmed everything. They know how to make proof disappear, he whispered. They'll come after you next. His father, a retired Marine, vouched for him. He's scared because he knows too much. The worker left a password in an abandoned mailbox. That password unlocked years of horror, fabricated reports, coerced confessions, body cam clips erased before families even knew they existed. And Tanner, he wasn't a lone bad cop. He was a cog in a machine. Camille filed a motion with federal court demanding every second of original footage be presented. When the department tried to stonewall, she released the uncut video through independent journalists. It spread like wildfire before the takedowns could start. People saw everything: the shove, the fear in Caleb's eyes, the precision of a man protecting, not attacking. Public opinion turned overnight. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt something like hope. The police department scrambled to respond, suspending Tanner and Briggs, but the damage was done. Camille stood on courthouse steps, microphones flashing, and said, "This isn't about one man. It's about a system that calls truth a threat." And behind her, Daniel stood tall. No apologies, no anger left in his face, just resolve. Weeks later, the diner reopened under new management. Families came and went like nothing had ever happened there. Daniel took Caleb back, sat at the same booth. This time, Caleb asked, "Can I sit facing the door like you, Dad?" Daniel smiled and nodded. "Yeah, that seat's for protectors." The fight wasn't over. Lawsuits were still winding through the courts, and enemies who tried to bury them were still out there. But Daniel had reclaimed something they tried to steal: his story. And now every time that footage played, the narrative they'd built crumbled. What do you think? Should raw body cam footage always be public? No edits, no delays? Or is there a line between transparency and chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own experiences with injustice. And if you stand for truth, hit that subscribe button. Let's see how many voices can turn silence into a roar.